Hello everybody, thanks for tuning in to the video. James Cards FC here. Today I want to talk about a topic that has been discussed a lot on other channels in the more mainstream sports card market, and it's sort of a phase we're going through in the market in terms of on the modern and ultra modern side and other sports, and it's titled Room to Grow. And so we'll be talking about this topic, how it relates to things that happened at the National and the way people are viewing the market currently. So no sophisticated data, charts, and graphs, just more of a general discussion today. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and get into it with sounds from the National. This will be the first slide here. From watching and listening to national content, one of the themes of the show for the more mainstream sports market was players with room to grow being the most popular. So, to talk about this in some more detail, I'm going to use an example from American football. I'm sorry if you're not familiar with these players or things that I'll be mentioning here, but I hope I'll be able to provide some insight into the market that is the American football market and how the more general market psychology is working right now in other sports. So, in football, we have Patrick Mahomes, who is arguably the best quarterback in football. And despite that, he's young as well, and he's on a decent but not great team this year. But other than that, he is the most talented, arguably the best player in football. He was not popular at all during the show. I've heard cases where people had Mahomes cards, really nice high-end stuff. They got zero offers on it. They had things well priced. Nobody wanted to touch it. So despite the fact that he's the best quarterback in football, he was not popular at all at the National. You move down to the next tier of quarterbacks here, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Josh Allen. These are the next tier of young quarterbacks in terms of their player performance. They were popular at the show, but not the most popular. The most popular group was the Trey Lance, Justin Hurts, and Tua Tagovailoa group of quarterbacks. These are completely unproven young quarterbacks, and despite that, they were the most popular at the show, more popular than Burrow, Herbert, Allen, or Mahomes, specifically because they were unproven young quarterbacks. Now, let's get into why that might be the case and why I think this is happening and why other people, including Northeast Ohio Sports Card, one of my favorite content creators, was talking about this being the case as well. So, Patrick Mahomes, his prices are already very expensive on pretty much all of his cards, and public perception is down. If you move down to the Burrow, Herbert, and Allen tier, their prices are already expensive on most cards, and public perception is up, but their cards are already expensive. If you move down to the Lance, Hurts, and Tagovailoa tier of quarterbacks, their prices are all still very accessible, and the public perception is optimism, despite the fact that they really don't have any data to go off of. You're just taking a chance, but you're trying to hit it on the ground floor and make a good entry point. So I summed this up in the last point here. People feel that they have missed the boat on Mahomes, and there is now mostly downside to his market. His market has been pulling back for a couple years now, and so they look at this as the money's already been made. No point in getting in now. I'm just going to go chase something else. If you go down to the Burrow, Herbert, and Allen tier, they might have some upwards movement, but you already missed the best entry point. The best entry point for all three of these quarterbacks would have been either last year or the year before. This past season, they all had big run-ups in price, and so now they're all priced accordingly. If you move down a further tier to the Lance, Hurts, and Tagovailoa guys, these represent a clean entry point with the most room to grow in comparison to the guys that we just mentioned, because while they have not proven anything, they have the potential in the future to prove something, and their prices being at the ground floor right now, well, not really the ground floor, but a good baseline to get in an entry point at, makes them very attractive because they could reach those heights that Burrow, Herbert, Allen, and Mahomes have already reached, despite the fact that they are not that level of player yet. So, with that out of the way, I want to talk about room to grow and trying to relate it to our market, which is specifically soccer. So, in my opinion, this room to grow concept that is taking the hobby by storm recently makes sense psychologically. Why would I invest in something that has already seen peak values when I can invest in something that has not peaked yet? And this is the psychological mindset that you get in when you start targeting things that have not peaked as opposed to things that have peaked and looking at upside potential. So let's talk about what I had on the opening slide, which was this Kylian Mbappe Topps Chrome Refractor PSA 10 versus this Jamal Musiala Sapphire Orange out of 50 in PSA 10. So both of these cards are sitting around the same value currently, which is somewhere in the $2,000 to $2,500 range. The Musiala is harder to comp because it sold recently on PWCC for, I believe, around $1,500 or $1,700. But obviously, over the past couple of weeks with his performances, I would expect that to go up a bit. And it's sold much higher previously, so it could just be that the PWCC sale was an outlier. Don't come for me. I just think these two are fairly similar in terms of price, and take my word for it. So, which of these has more room to move? Let's go through the points here. Mbappe is an unnumbered refractor rookie, while the Musiala is a rookie card that is out of 50, so that leans heavily on the Musiala side for that part of the argument. Mbappe is already considered the best young player in the world, while Musiala is still just a hot prospect, so you would lean Musiala on that side as well. Then you go to the third point, which is Mbappe had peaked at $10,000 in April of 2021 when he was seen as possibly the best player in the world, whereas Musiala peaked at $4,500 in October of 2021 when he was seen as maybe the best prospect in the world. So, just going based off that, not taking into account risk factors or actual potential of things happening, Musiala does have higher potential for upside based on all three of these factors that I just mentioned, and that makes his cards in this room to grow mindset much more attractive than the Kylian Mbappe. So, final slide here, what can we learn from this, and what is there to learn from this? I sum this up as market participants are currently preferring high-risk cards with potential to explode in value over more blue-chip cards that have established values. So from this, we need to figure out how we're going to attack this. And I've summed this up into three separate ways of how we attack this current mindset that is ruling the modern and ultra-modern side of our market. So option number one is for you to join the crowd. And this would be you attempting to ride the wave of cards with room to grow by deploying capital into higher risk players with the potential to explode in value despite the risk factors that are at play. If you're using this, you then have to ask yourself, are you going to try and get out as soon as you see value? If you're deploying this strategy, I would highly recommend you do so because, as I say in the third point, all young players have the potential to have a signature moment. Rodrigo is a great example. He scored 2 goals in the Champions League semi-final, I believe, in extra time to help Real Madrid make the final. And his prices, I believe, went up 40, 50, 60%, maybe even more in some cases overnight. They stayed up that level for about a week, and now they have come back to what they were previously. So, pretty much every player has the potential to have that one moment, and that can be your moment to exit these room to grow high risk cards, and I would definitely recommend that you do so. But if you're going to be joining the crowd, these are the options that you have to yourself, and you're going to have to make some decisions based on if you want to play this joining the crowd option. The second option and third options would be my personal favorites, and we'll get into those. The second option here is to fuel the crowd, which would be to raw to grade these higher risk players that people are interested in and sell to the buyers that want to gamble on the slabs. So a good example of this, I think, would be buying Cole Palmer, Sapphire, or low numbered cards, raw, that currently just came out from the most recent sets, grade them with PSA, and then sell them in a few months when you get them back from PSA to somebody that wants to gamble on Cole Palmer being a guy with a lot of room to grow, because yes, Cole Palmer has a lot of room to grow. He has not featured yet really for Manchester City, so there's a chance over the next few months or the next year or so that he does end up featuring, makes a spot in the starting 11, scores a few goals. All that sort of stuff is definitely possible for Cole Palmer, and I'm sure there are plenty of people that see that as a good opportunity to get in on the ground floor at Cole Palmer, where he has some room to grow, and they wouldn't mind spending a couple $100s on some slabs and seeing what happens. So in this strategy, you're going to be the one raw integrating and providing those slabs to the people that eventually want to gamble on them and try and capture those room to grow high risk assets. I think this is personally a great strategy as long as you know what you're doing with grading. The third strategy, and probably will end up being the best strategy in the long run, would be to avoid the crowd. So this would be you looking the other way and deploying capital into the more blue chip type players in hopes that the market will grow or shift its attention to those players rather than the risky players that they are targeting currently. So this would be guys like Kylian Mbappe. If you go back a little further, this would be guys like Lionel Messi, guys like Cristiano Ronaldo, instead of all these high risk, highly volatile rookies that can bounce all over the board in price. These should be those more blue chip type players. And when we're in a market in which they are not very popular, it could be a good time to get in on them while everybody's eyes are directed at something else. So those are the three options I think you have based on our current market outlook. I think this is all a very interesting dynamic that is going on in the current market. Obviously, there are some more general themes going on, like specifically trying to target high-end sets like Flawless and Eminence, but in terms of the ultra-modern players side of the market, I think the narrative of players with room to grow and targeting these high-risk, high-volatile players is one of the more prominent moods or themes that the market is currently in. So I'd love to see your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.